again, chat. All right, so the next part, so pretty much the last thing that we were working on, pretty much being able to show all the users that we got from JSON there, okay, or the end product, this one right. And again, just to get to the URL, if you're new, you can just go to JSONPlaceholder.typecode.com. But yeah, this is the pretty much anyone that's new, pretty much the object or response that we use to pretty much build UI that we have here. So pretty much from the API response. As you see, right here again. And we were able to get that data, show it, and then also build like a detail screen like this where the user tap on here and be pushed to the detail screen where they'd see like the user's name in the title, their actual name, their email, phone button, and some address information. Some code. So the next step that we're going to do right now is that we're going to use another endpoint that they have, which point. And like with this now, we can get posts that each user made. So we can use their user ID right here and get like the post linked to them. So if you like, it looks like user ID 1, this person had a bunch of posts, but then you see there's ID 2. So we want to be able to show the posts at each. And how we're going to do it is that once you click on a user and basically get sent to their profile, I'm thinking is a picture view here, similar to like which I have it, but we're just going to use a standard picker view. And with this picker view, we could have one section, we could have this about section, then we could have another section called post. So let's do this. First thing is just go over this. This is our user's view. That's pretty much our screen right here. Our user's view right here. And then if you click on it, it's into our user's detail view here. Text, the user's name, etc. And we're using the MVVM architecture. So we have a bunch of we have 2 view models. So detail model right here. And for the user's view model, we also have the user's view model for this list. All right. So now we're gonna be able to show each post for each user in their user detail view screen. So we are pause this, stop this, and then we're gonna try to load or preview. And let's just get a like a copy of what the endpoint looks like. Just copy this. I'm gonna go to our services file that we have here. So right now I am using typecode.users, and then I'll change this name to users. We're gonna get some errors because I'm using it. We're gonna get one error. For this, I'll just here. Well, if you notice one thing, the only difference between these is just path here, users, and so we're gonna eventually use the end enum instead. Just handle both of them within there. But before we do that, let's jump into visual, please. All right, so we are able, so it's 2 endpoints. We'll be able to get all the users which we're using right now, and then we want to be able to get all the posts. So since it's a different stream right now, I'm gonna pretty much go back through again how I'm gonna create this new function that we're gonna use for fetching posts, similar to how we have fetch user maximum. So how we did originally is we have a protocol here called user services, and then we have a class that conforms to it. And if you don't really get that, basically I'm creating like the instructions for how if you want to get this ability, fetch user ability, if you want to get it, you have to use it and add it to your class, and what you have to implement on the ability or the requirements for that protocol. All right, so what we're going to do now is add a different function, and this one is going to be for fetching posts. So let's just call this one post. And before we do that, let's see if we can just, so as you see, the class is requiring us to add it back. Just add it now. Post here. And we're going to just pause that just for 1 second. I feel like I want to jump users detail view and at least see if we can add in the view right now. I'm thinking that we add the picker view right before we go into the form. It would be around here. Yeah. Profile section. Then we need some binding, and that's gonna be basically like a way how we can track what we're selected, and then we need to add the content. Like what do we how we want to what we want to here. Been a while since I kind of messed with picker, I think, so I might need to jump to Google for a sec, just a reminder. But let's see how far we can get without that, right? Let's jump to our users detail view model, and like as I said, like we have a selection here, and basically this is that it requires some type of enum in a way how we can track this what picker select. Create that enum now, but let's add it. All right, for now let's just add it to our user detail, but I want to kind of different folder actually. Let's just do it. Let's call this file section. File. And the first one we could call, let's just make the first one, make about, is pretty much what we have on the screen right now. When you go to user detail view, we'll make that be about section. All right. So now that we have the let's add like a publish variable to it that we can use to like bind to the, so we can track which one. Let's have a default set to. So now we can jump back to our detail view like that. Okay, cool. And then what we can do is say I think I have to make cross sections extra so that I can call like basically say for this for loop, use all the sections inside profile section, all the cases inside profile section, post and so it offers. Oh yeah, all cases. All right, next. All this. References. All right, just to confirm to identifiable. That's it, it's been a while, so I think like this. Identifiable. The thing about identifiable, it requires that add a property called I. The feeling. Okay, that worked. Okay, so now we're gonna say text, and we're gonna. This is basically gonna be each text that we're gonna show per selection, like for each of them. But I'm gonna make it that we add, because pretty much this is type. This is a profile section type. I want to add it that within profile section, we're gonna add like the title, picker selection, or it in there. So I'll be like, yo, title. I'm gonna switch on this stuff. Honestly, like I really like using switch. I rather using switch than like I try any point where I can use a switch. I love to use it. So I try to do that. All right, so I'll call this post. It just do it, I guess. And like it's so much easier to read. I feel like. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna call the other section about. So now that we have this, we can probably just say section a title, and let's see if our preview will show us some. Oh, okay, so it is showing us something. It's not the one that I was expecting, but it's showing us like the drop down menu. I think all we have to do is we add a picker style, and another reason why you just have to love SwiftUI, like just doing that pretty much fix it. All right, so you see how the picker is pretty much all the way to the sides. Let's just work by adding some padding horizontal. All right, but we have the picker, but as I say, none are selected. I think how we have to do this is that we have to make it that we have to add like a tag to text that we have here, and it's gonna be the one that's initially selected is gonna be based on the one that we set over here, which should be post from our view model. Let's see if that works. If not, yeah, we gotta jump to Google. All right, so tag, and we're gonna say tag is equal to section, maybe title. Oh, is it just section? Okay. Okay. Yeah, so that's exactly what. So the next thing is now how do we handle showing a different view when the section is selected. So the first view right here is pretty much this form, and we want it only to be shown when the profile section is about. So the first thing I'm thinking, is that like, just let's just make separate view, and because like if I wrap this in like a if statement or wrap it in a switch, it's still gonna be so much bigger code. Like it's gonna be harder to read. All right, so what I'm gonna do instead is break this down. So I'm gonna I think there's a way to extract subview, but I want to put different view, a different folder. Inside user detail view, I'm gonna create a new folder called about view, about section, and then I'm gonna add a new SwiftUI file on the literal same thing, about section view. right? And did I copy something? Let's jump back to user detail view. I'm gonna grab this. That's it. And this out. Grab back the name that we were using. Out section view. Paste it here. And then still gonna have a bunch of errors. Pretty much it's like now that we're creating a separate view, I guess pretty much all we need to do, we could just pass in the view, but let's just pass in just the user model instead of passing in the view model all the way. Since we're not really listening for any changes or anything like that, I guess it would be simpler. All right, you know what? Let's just test just doing it with the view model. And because this is like a nested SwiftUI view, we're not going to use a state object. I'm going to use an observed object instead, because it's more external. So I'll say var model. DetailView model. And observed. And that'll be fine. When we go back here, come back to user detail view, we have to update the name, which is it requires a view model, and that view model requires a user model, which is the user that we selected from the list of users originally. View model user. So we don't yeah. So if you go back and watch the previous stream, you'll see that like I originally had users in here, but I decided to add a view model instead and have that view model require a user model. Just because I wanted to keep the SwiftUI view, the view just for view. I didn't want to have any working there. All right. So about section view, and let's just run that just to make sure we're seeing as expected. What's up with the preview order? Oh, probably the preview. At least I guess this is what was up with the preview. All right, so this requires a model, but we already have one, so let's just grab one from the detail view. And the AI, the new AI that Xcode has, probably has this setup where it's like automatically fills it out, but I had that turned off because that was doing too much for me. You know what I mean? I kind of wanted to, it was taking the fun out of coding for me. So I turned it off. The next thing is, let's try and run this. It should literally just be the same thing, but it just should be functioning. Okay, so we have, all right, nice. Let's jump back to our user detail view, and we're gonna basically use the enum that we created, the property for that. If it's about section, then we show this screen. If not, then we show the other screen. So if you model a profile section, and actually we could just switch. Just do that. Oh yeah, I 100% prefer using. So it'll be like switch view model profile section, and then come on. Then we'll just for the about section, we're gonna show this. Then for the post section, that's where we're gonna start working on. Excellent. And we just want to check if it's working right. So let's tap on the user, and then you see the post right there. If I switch back, it does change. Cool. So now let's start working on the profiles. For the profile screen, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to create a folder, profile section. Then we're going to add a new SwiftUI file to that. Profile section. And then just for now, let's just jump back to user detail view and we'll just add it here. All right, so I guess two things that we can think of is like, what do we want to show? Do we want to show just like a list? I'm thinking let's just think of just showing like a list, but let's just jump and look at the data again. Data again. Like this, I'll just copy this. And we need to represent the data, but we also need to know what we're going to. So I'm thinking that we could just like a list of like pretty much all the posts that the user has. But let's start by making like a model that we're going to use for decoding those data that are posts. So let's say like struct. And from our previous video stream, you saw that like we understood that we had to make all our models decodable so that we can use it with Swift Concurrency for decoding the data. Or pretty much for any API request. Doesn't even have to be Swift Concurrency. We have to, in Swift, we have to decode it. I don't remember all the parameters, so I'll just paste this here temporarily for now. And I'll just comment that out. Then I'll say let user ID and I'll make this in. Then they say ID in. Because title is body is a string. Yeah. We have those. So we have our Swift model to represent our post data each. All right, so let's jump back. So we are inside user detail view. We have the profile section. So in user detail view model, so I guess we're thinking now like, how do we want to handle this? Do we want to call the API immediately right after return to the screen? Or return to the screen when we go to like a user's profile when we go to our user's user detail view, or should we call it on when the profile section view? But that would happen like we call it a bunch of times. But the user could have updated their post. So I'm thinking like just for now, let's just call the API whenever the profile section view is pretty much apparent. So to do that, we're gonna end up needing a view model for this, and we're gonna actually pass our services dependencies from our user detail view model all the way down to our profile section view. So I guess that's gonna add some extra complexity. It might be hard for us to follow. So what we're gonna do instead is that from our user detail view model, we are going to add like a services dependency, and then we pretty much call the API for posts when needed using user detail view model. So all right, so let's jump back. So now we're just gonna go to our services layer again, and we're gonna update our fetch post function so that we can actually get the post. Let's jump to services. And we're gonna do the same method. We're gonna use Swift concurrency, so we have to make the function asynchronous, and we want to throw our errors. We want to show errors if that happens. and we want to return an array of posts. Array of posts. We have to update. So since we updated that, we have to do the same thing again like we did before. We have to update the function so it conforms to it, the protocol that we're using. So post there. And then right here, this is where we'll say a method where it's like we will convert our endpoint as a string to a URL. Difference is though we need an additional parameter for fetching posts, the user's ID, user's UI, user ID. So let's add that parameter here. And you might be wondering, how do I know that I need that? So if we go back to JSONPlaceholder, type a code, and we scroll down to so if we do just get post one, it just sends, I think it just sends one post. But what we really want instead is be able to get every post for a particular user. Post one gives ID one post. We can check that part out. One is, yeah. So just doing post that one gives us still based on the ID. We want to get it based on the user ID. Right for you. Oh, okay. So it looks like it's actually user is one post. Okay, so I guess we could still use this API. Okay, so user is one post, and then you get all your ID. Okay. It's a little bit different than I thought it was going to be. So actually, what we're going to do is we don't need this right now. Post and we don't need this. All we need to do is modify this end based on this end, based on a parameter that we set. This end, we're going to add I based on the user ID. Just add one, and then you get all of their posts. Then you get all of their posts. There's one post, and it's like you add on additional. But to handle this better, what I'm thinking that we're going to do instead is let's get rid of this. We don't need posts. Might not need it at all for right now, at least. Get rid of these right here. And then instead of that, we're going to make it that we can add additional parameters. We can say /1 or /2. So we can do this even better is by creating a endpoint, a enum that we can use to handle adding on like a parameter or not. So we'll create it here for now, but we're gonna actually move it to its own file. Call this endpoints, and then we have a private. What's main? Now we're gonna say case all this, actually all this all users. We could just call this and let's make this a string. Take like some type of string. What's gonna happen now? We're gonna create like a separate variable. Call this. I'm literally call it. I don't want to call it endpoint. URL string. I hate using that, but URL string here. and then I'll switch on self. Told you I like using switch. Then I return, say, all the users, which is this right here. Then user ID, let's change it. I don't know, ID. And then this will be similar. Actually, not use. This will be much this here. Then we'll adjust this so that it has user ID. So what happens now? We don't even need this. And then for endpoint, we're making that endpoint is like this. State the URL, update the function that it just takes an endpoint, and that endpoint can become, we just use URL string to get us right in. Take an endpoint or protocol. Found the arrow. Still have endpoint here, so endpoint. I'm gonna I'll think about it. But all right, so now what will happen is we'll have some errors because certain parts of our code we have to update it to point instead now. Here. And we could say endpoint is not, for this case, remember this is the screen. This is this screen right here, users view model, users view. So we want this to show all users. So that's why we just pretty much just set it to all users. All right, so that all users. All right, so the next thing that we need to do now, pretty much use the other enum that we have, which is post by user ID. So where do we want to use that? We want to use that for detail view model. And then we're going to pass those posts down to we're going to use those posts inside the user detail view. So one thing we have to update. So the first thing is, let's get this out of here, profile section. We're going to just move to a different file. Remember, that's just the enum that we were using. Keeping track of the selected section that on the profile user detail. Call this profile section. Yeah. Just going to create a new file and just add literally the same thing that we just added, that we just copied. Okay, so all right, so no, good. We have another enum too. All this. This is actually for services. So let's add a different for and all this new stuff. So the reason I'm doing this is just to clean up stuff. You don't want to have everything just kind of everywhere. And we'll just create a new file, call this endpoint. And let's move. All right. Next thing we need to do is let's jump back to user detail view, which is load up the preview so you can keep track too. Okay, so we want to handle for whenever post is selected. The first thing we can do is pretty much the user detail view model, like the main view model for the detail section. And make an API call to get posts for that particular user. So the first thing is you have to notice is that user detail view model doesn't have any access to the services, so we have to add a we have to add a dependency for services by dependency injection for initializer. So the first thing we can do is just say let services, and then we're going to make it to the protocol type of the services that we have. This right here, this is the protocol that we have for user services, and then we have a class that conforms to it. And the reason we're doing this is to help with testing, because we want to make some mock objects a different stream just for help with creating units. All right, so for the user services, now we will copy this. Update the init services. And now, just like that, our user detail view model has access to our services. Let's just, there are some, let's give a default value to this. That way we don't have to update it everywhere we just added that. Okay. Yeah, you see we can go here, it's still fine. All right, so now let's work on adding the function, actually create the to actually get the post for that user. So let's go here and let's just say func and let's fetch post. And since it's an asynchronous function with marker function, services call is asynchronous, mark it as asynchronous functions. And the next thing we'll do, like we remember, the fetch post call is throwable. So it can throw, so it can kill. So we have to put it inside a do catch. And then let's add a variable to hold it. And then we'll say this is fetch post. Then for our end, by user ID. And we know what the user ID is because this view requires us to have the user information. But now let's not really worry about the error. Let's just do an error here. Do is call this function. Make the string. Paste that right. Oh yeah, call can throw. All right, I'll try. All right, so we want to make sure that this gets called. Call it the profile section. It's pretty much the first time, but it will show called each time toggle the section view. have to say await, remember? Dot post. So run this. And then if that get the here this I run this one. And the reason I use dump is because dump is like it presents the print to the console better in like type of object or whatever you're trying to print. So when I go past it, so we get an error. It could not be read because it looks like maybe post object. Of course, yeah, we still I messed up just now. Actually, do still need our post function here. That's embarrassing. And what we're gonna do is add back endpoint. I forgot that we're returning two different types. For the post. And now we'll have to update this by calling. All right, so this logic is going to be real similar to this. So I'm going to just copy this. Just okay. Yeah, so it's pretty much doing the same thing. Yeah, it's just that we're returning different types. I forgot with my. Okay. All right. So what we're gonna do then instead of calling fetch users, we're gonna call fetch posts, and then when we run it, let's click on some user. Oh, it's users #1. Come to our yeah, so it's users one /post right here. More time. The problems that occur when you live stream. Yeah. All right. So, but that's the debugging part. All right. So it looked like that worked. So we were able to actually decode it, and we have 10 values. But let's just to the console and see what happens when it's showing. Yeah. So the decoding worked. We're good. Back to X. Decoding work. We're good. We're seeing. So now what we need to do. Show these posts inside the profile section when the picker is toggled there. Get rid of this now. Don't need to dump the post anymore. But since we want to show change whenever the posts are updated, sometimes API calls take time, or service might be down. We need a way to tell the SwiftUI view to update, so update the re-render the screen. So how we can do that is by creating a property and marking it with a publish operator. And what publish does is like it makes it that whenever this property changes, it also tells the SwiftUI view to re-render. It makes the SwiftUI view re-render. We call this post. I will make it of a post type. Empty, right? And then instead of creating the variable there, we'll post from. And we're gonna handle the error soon. Let's just back to our DetailView. Is we can have simple profile section have a binding to post that we have here. There are a bunch of other ways you could have did this, but we could have had profile section view have pass down the API call to profile section view and call it from there by adding a profile section model. But the simple and fastest way is like to just add like a binding. So what we could do with this binding now, we could go inside profile section view, binding. And binding is like we're gonna make a similar link where it's like whenever our posts change from outside, the profile section view will update to show it, or if any changes or vice versa, any changes we made in the opposite direction. We'll call this post. After. And we'll just say constant post user so now we have access to the profile section view here, post, and we'll just $, because we want binding with publish binding version of it. We have to put a $sign in front of it first, and we'll pass and post. So whenever this API succeeds, the post side profile section view will update. So we can jump to profile section. And there are a bunch of ways how you could have did this. That's why you have to love SwiftUI, Swift programming, not just one way to these tasks, multiple different ways. And sometimes it's fun finding them. All right, so the VStack. And for this, honestly, it's just gonna be a list of profile of posts. Nothing too crazy. We're just gonna show title and the body. That's it. Not going to, so just two text. Might add some bolding or so. Let's say list post each, so we can recognize each element from post, and the VStack. Then make the VStack alignment. So the first issue we see here is that like we had in the previous stream when we were using users, the users model had to conform to identifiable if you wanted a list. And we found the fix for it is it literally tells us, it says requires a post conform to identifiable. So we just have to make it that the post model conform to identifiable. So we'll jump here and identifiable as a conformance. Identifiable has a requirement that it needs a property that is called ID, but post already required that, so we don't have to do any additional. So we'll just jump back here and this error will and again we're just doing yeah, we're just showing information for each of them. So we have title and we have body. So let's just do title at the top here. And then we'll do body right below. Post. Let's go to the preview just to see what it's like. Again, we're not going for fancy, we're just trying this. Okay, so that doesn't look too bad. Let's make this a head font. And just make this a sub headline. And that's some padding, just it would actually would be fine since we're using a list light. Right, but then we'll run the app. But okay. So for posts, you see we're in the post section. I want to change one, but I need to. Oh wait, before we do that, pause. Let's run it. And if we see about, we still see the about section. So pretty much seeing what we were kind of wanted now. Only thing I want to change is I want to make title capital each list. So I'll jump here. Then if we run it again, see that each word in each title is capital. And so now we have two sections on our profile. One thing you see our console is flagging. It's saying we're publishing changes from the background thread. It's not allowed. Make sure to publish changes thread. So let's stop this and see where this error is coming. And we also get like a purple highlighter here. And then click into it, it kind of brings us to where the error is. So we had this error before in the previous stream where we were setting up the users. So for this one, it's a similar issue. We're handling this from the background and we're trying to update. What we want to do is make that it actually is done on the main thread. Those updates are done on the main thread. So let's say we're gonna add main actor, and this makes it that those changes are done on the main thread. So if we rerun this, you'll notice that we don't see the error anymore. See, no errors showing up in the console. I'm going up. But that's pretty much what we kind of wanted to do with posts. The next step that we want to take though is want to add a potential error case. But in this case, if potential error handling, but it's gonna be different because if this fails, so the API fails, do we want to show error alert on this screen? I guess that's what I'm thinking. Because everything we could instead show, say, let's add it and then all right, let's add it still. We're gonna add two cases. So we want to show something that doesn't have any, just a simple content unavailable view, and then we're gonna handle if a case where the user pretty much there is an error while calling the post API. Let's do the first one first, where we're gonna handle if this probably won't happen because pretty much all the data is there, but always check for it. There's always a case, like if you're working on some type of project, always think about the case where empty case or dark mode cases. It's something that gets forgot a lot and then it ruins the experience. It messes with the experience, it doesn't ruin it. So to do this, we're gonna do this really simple. We're gonna go to user detail view again. And then within our post section, we're gonna say if view model post is empty, not empty. I feel like I should make like an extension phrase called like not empty, just so I don't have to. Anyways, else this cross section view. Otherwise, show content unavailable. And this is like a view provided by Apple that is like basically is like a good basic explanation that some data isn't present right now. You see Apple use a bunch of times, but once I show you, you're gonna be like, oh, okay, that. So I'll jump down to. I'm gonna put this on where it requires a title, description. So for the title, I'm gonna post, and then for the system image, I'm just gonna magnify. Then for the description, I'm gonna say add post if I pause calling the API, the load previews, you'll see the content. It'll say it looks like this, and I'm sure you've seen this already. So it's like just some image, little bold title, and then some description. So I'll have this. So the user will see don't have any post. This is just like a good backup. So we'll just get rid of that right now, and you'll see that now calling the API. Okay, so the next section that we kind of mentioned, let's run it though. We won't see if API is going to be successful for a second. This should breakpoint and like it call it. The reason it didn't call it, what's happening is we first arrive, post is empty, so content unavailable view, and since post this that task never gets called, what we have to do is move this. So if we say it should just cut this, we're here. Or what we could do is, and then run, you'll notice that it changes. Go to a DetailView, got post, but at first, I know it's gonna happen super fast, but at first you see it is unavailable. Then we get the post back. This works fine. All right, so the next thing is, as I said, we're gonna handle errors that might happen. So we're just gonna show our alert too. In the previous stream, we're gonna follow a similar method where we basically just, so let's jump to our users view. So we had a property for error alert, and a property for storing the error message, and both of them are published. And the reason for this is, like we mentioned, so that whenever they get updated, we could the view would re-render. So we'll just copy those two properties again. Then side here we'll add error case. We could pretty much copy the same, but it's gonna be if let custom error equals to error as service error, passing it to our custom error that we have, which is this right here inside our services class called user services error. So we have three cases: invalid URL, invalid status code, a custom. Also have a property for error message, and basically this is so you can get like a readable error that makes sense to show to the user. All right, so back out, and we'll just say custom error. No, error message is our property that we have here is equal to custom error message. Else, if we can't convert it to that, then we pretty much just do error message equal error.localize the script, and then we toggle show error alert. And now we have to add a new feature to it, or better, it's really called a modifier, but it basically gives the view a different availability where it's like it can show alert. Scroll down to is presented, and it requires a binding. So similar to how we binding pretty much passed in posts, we're gonna do the same thing, and we're gonna say show alert. Where is that? All the alert type. So it's pretty much content that we want to show. The alert type alert. Just say view error message. What will happen now? Whenever show error alert is toggled, show error message. A quick way to test this. For services. Sorry about it. And for the post by user ID, let's just mix up fires. I should say. And this is gonna call the API to give us an error back, because yeah, that's not a correct endpoint. So you see the endpoint shows the error. So something like operation could. That's the error that we kind of wanted. And then since there are no posts, it says no posts and no posts. Add posting. What we could do to make this script is linking it. So for content available view, we could check if there's an error. And if there's an error and no post, basically we could do like a different type of text. But for now, honestly, I feel like this. So yeah, we'll just rerun that. We'll add back the fix and then just rerun it. And if we go to post, we go to the user's detail view, we can see all their posts again. Toggle. And we do have error message, error handling. So this is good. Yeah, I feel like we're in a good place right here. Let me see if there's anything. So I'm going to end the stream here, but the next step is let me jump to our JSON placeholder again, because we're going to tackle every endpoint that it provides using SwiftUI with MVVM with concurrency. All right, so the ones that it has, the next resource is what we've done today. We did users, we did to-do, we did photos, and we did posts. The next step we're gonna do is comments. I'm not sure if we're gonna do yeah, we're gonna do albums, but our next step thing is we're gonna do. Let's just look what comments is, and you see comments is posts. So the same way like how we had each of these posts look like they're linked to comments. So what I'm going to do is for the next stream, we're going to make it that the user can click on any of these rows and they can see their comments for each of them. Or yeah, we're going to make it that. So we're going to call this API, and all it requires again is just like the post ID of one right there. Let me just see. Okay, so this is what the endpoint post comments, and then from there you all of the comments for that post. Okay, so we'll add that in. Might look like it's different. Okay. Yeah, so we'll all work on that in next stream. But if you like this, follow, subscribe.